I am Daniel Madison. Jack Kerouac said, "The great things are not accomplished by those who yield to trends and fads and popular opinion." Vincent van Gogh said, "The great things are not done by impulse, but a series of small things brought together." I like to think that I try to lead my life by example. I try to live a life of art. I completely bury myself and drown myself in a life of art and artistry, 100%, no compromise. I like to lead by example by doing that. I don't believe that to make a statement and to live a life like that, you don't need to go outside and paint a huge picture of Mona Lisa holding a gun to her head. I don't believe that you have to do that to prove something about yourself, to prove that you are an artist or that you live differently or act differently or think differently. You don't necessarily have to do those big things. When you dedicate your life to something, it doesn't have to be a series of dramatic and huge and powerful things that require you to be stood on top of a rooftop yelling, "Everybody look at me." I made a video about this. I made a video about this video like this not so long ago. You don't have to stand on the rooftop yelling, "Hey, you are all CUNTs." I have to find a link to that video. I've been reminded of this a lot with the idea of inspiring people to try to apply a more artistic way of living life, but kind of getting it wrong because of the feeling and the thought that you have to approach it so dramatically and so extremely. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that way. So the idea of people following trends, fads, and popular opinion, and also making big statements, I believe that's the wrong direction. It's easy. It's really nice and it's a huge compliment to inspire people, and it's really nice to be inspired. So when people get inspired, me for example, going back many years, I was quite inspired by David Blaine, and I found myself doing a few similar things to him in my act, in the presentation of magic. A few things were borrowed, but I instantly recognized that I was doing that, so I put a stop to it and I did things my own way. I'm not sure if it's because it's been kind of given to me or taught to me, but I never wanted to be like anybody else. I knew that I wasn't normal and I wasn't like anybody else anyway. So instead of trying to change myself and adapt to that, I decided that it was easy to go in my own direction and take the flack that was going to come because of that, which never really did, and when it did, I was built, or at least I put myself in a position where I was naturally protected from that because of those steps I took, and the idea of it doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter how you're going to be judged. I look around, I see so many people judging and not doing. You know, I get judged a lot, even by people who might be close to me, judging what I'm doing instead of doing something themselves. Is a weird thing. But let me try and get to what I was saying. I knew that I was different, so instead of trying to change it, I embraced it. Now, when you're inspired by somebody, or when you're inspired by something, it's very easy to try to replicate it, even subconsciously, even unconsciously try to. And in a way, it's kind of paying a tribute to it. So the few people that I've inspired who they don't try to look like me. They end up replicating what they see because they're inspired and they're not sure what to do with it. And I always try and reach out to those people and, first of all, thank you for taking the inspiration, but now here's how you do the next step. It's easy to look at trends and look at popular things and think, if I take the same steps as that person, if I do A, B, C, D, all the way to Z the same way that person did, I will achieve the same things that that person achieved. And it's not necessarily the case. It's certainly not the case, in fact, because you end up becoming a copy of that, and you end up losing yourself and your chance and your potential to be original, to have your own thing. I think I always say this, we're driven by love and fear. So the inspiration, and when we're inspired, we make decisions because we're inspired. But at the same time, we can also make decisions because of a fear. So those two things mixed together, those are the biggest things that we need to both embrace and overcome in order to move forward, in order to progress, in order to take inspiration and use it in a correct way, in a beneficial way to us, but also as a tribute in our own way to the people who inspire us. Now, so many different things have got me thinking about this, about those two sentiments. First of all, the idea that I like to think that I personally don't make big actions. I make a series of smaller, more compact, more carefully constructed actions that all lead by example. So it's kind of like your legacy, right? It's like the legacy of the things I do and the things I've done. They all encompass, they all make this one piece of art that is life itself, rather than big statement pieces. That's not to walk away or step away from, or not want to execute or experiment or do those bigger pieces, which I love. But for me, the originality, the inspiration from it is seeing those people, looking around and seeing. YouTube is one that got to me more recently, seeing people overly inspired directly copying. So when you go back to David Blaine, so many people copy. Even to this day, the TV format that he he devised and he popularized, is still copied today, a copy of a copy of a copy. Now the same thing happens, and it continues to happen on YouTube, right? So we see Chris Ramsay, and then all of a sudden Chris Ramsay revolutionizes the way that magic is perceived and expressed and performed and executed for the internet age, for modern magic, for the future of magic, and so many people are inspired by it that they think, I'm going to do the same, and they copy. And I don't even mean new people or more unintelligent people. That's going to sound really disrespectful. Even big names in magic and incredible sleight of hand artists, surprisingly direct copies of Chris Ramsay. They copy his formula, his format, they do everything that he does, and it's so bizarre, it's so weird. So you look at the drive behind it, and the drive comes from a few different places. One, inspiration, they're inspired by what they've seen. They've seen that person's success, so they think, if I do the same thing, A, B, C, D, all the way to Z, they'll get the same results. And that's what they're after. They want the same results, which is subscriber count through the roof, which means revenue, right? So in a way, it's kind of chasing money, which I try to avoid at all costs. Everybody has to pay the bills. Not everybody has to be greedy, but it's in people to be that way, to do that. I know that Chris Ramsay got into it because he wanted to revolutionize magic, and he was inspired in his own way, and he had his own ambition that was driven by not changing the direction of magic, but giving magic and the deceptive practices a new direction, because it was so stale, and he achieved it. Meanwhile, everybody copies because they think it's all about the money and the subscribers. Now, when I refer to Jack Kerouac, he said, great things are accomplished by and not accomplished by those who yield to trends and fads and popular opinion. So when Chris Ramsay came along, he was the first one to do what he did, right? He was the first. maybe there were a few more unknown people before him, but he was one of the first, if not the most important person to do what he did. And he wasn't following trends or fads or popular opinion. Certainly in terms of YouTube algorithms and things like that, the YouTube tricks, certainly yes, he did that, but overall the encapsulation, what word am I looking for, the ownership of himself as a personality and a driving force in that industry. He did it his own way. He didn't copy somebody else, so he achieved great things. So the people who copy, who are inspired and try to achieve something similar, they're not necessarily gonna. There's going to be a very rare occasion that they achieve the same heights, the same things, the same achievements, because they're just copying. They're just doing the same thing. They are yielding to trends and fads and popular opinion. They're not doing their own thing. They're not being different, because being different doesn't necessarily work, and it's scary. And here we are back again, driven by fear. Chasing love, driven by fear. Now, the reason I talk about the Van Gogh, the Van Gogh idea, great things are not done by impulse, but a series of small things brought together. So, on the other hand, the way that I like to work, I'd rather be original and do my own thing, completely different to everybody else, and achieve my own things, so that you can look at my whole life and see a series of things that make the whole thing a piece of art, rather than big statement things that are designed to make you go click, that are designed to make you click subscribe, comment, like, share, and all that, and at the same time, while I'm trying to express one or two ideas, I'm babbling and I'm talking so much. This video was actually supposed to be about something else, so we'll get straight to it. And the idea is that I wanted to talk about on film today was creating magic, and also I want to talk a little bit about crediting and correctly crediting. But I think I've used up so much time talking about something that is possibly irrelevant. The idea of creating magic. When I first got into magic, I've always been a creative person, just always wanting to create and trying my best to always create. And then there's that idea that you never run out of creativity. You can't run out of it. The more creative you are, the more creativity there is, and the more creativity you generate. So I found myself constantly growing as a creative person when I got into magic. When I wasn't performing, I still wanted to be doing it. And then the same idea of originality and using my inspirations in my own way, forging my own path, doing my own thing. The idea was, I didn't want to be doing the same tricks that everybody else was doing. Another comment back to YouTube, to the YouTubers, they're all doing the same thing. I didn't want to do the same thing that everybody else was doing. I didn't want to do a trick and then have somebody say, every magician's been there and they've experienced this, where you start doing a trick and somebody says, I've seen this one before. The idea that the trick you're going to do is, pick a card, I'm going to find it, which is true, and which is basically what magicians do. But I didn't want to ever I didn't ever want to do a trick and have somebody say, oh yeah, the magician who was at my cousin's wedding 2 weeks ago did that same trick. Or I've seen that trick on TV. And that's happened, Oh yeah, I've seen Blaine do that on TV. Oh yeah, I've seen Dynamo do that, Or why do all magicians choose to do the same tricks? I guess there's only a certain limit of tricks. There's only a certain limit, right? Eventually we all do the same tricks. For me, my repertoire of magic and card tricks, although up here there's about maybe 500 different tricks, my repertoire is about 6 tricks tall, wide, however you want to describe it. I have about 6 tricks that I use in my repertoire. And sometimes that changes, it goes up and down, and when I say tricks, the advocate, for people who know, the advocate, that's a device that bleeds into and allows 1,000 other tricks. So it's a bit strange for me to say that I only do 6 tricks, but at the same time I only do 6 tricks. Maybe it's not 6, I don't know. And by the way, every single time I do tricks, every single time I never do the same trick twice. And this is the idea. So I wanted to be so original that everything was my own. So that led into me creating original things that the magic industry, magic companies, magic businesses were interested in taking and publishing and sharing with the rest of the world. So I really love the idea of sharing and helping to advance the art of magic and inspiring other magicians and teaching them how to do it the same way as me, which is a backwards and bizarre thing to say, because in teaching them to be like me, I'm teaching them the opposite lesson that I should really be teaching, which is be original. But because of that, so because I wanted to be original, I ended up getting attention from the magic industry. And now the magic industry wants to make money from tricks. Now the magic industry shouldn't really exist. It really shouldn't exist. I mean, magicians need a place to learn. So they learn off of other magicians, and they're inspired by other magicians to create their own tricks and their own repertoire and their own sleight of hand, their own whatever. But the magic industry shouldn't exist, because magic is a performance. Magic is a performance. It shouldn't be this place where once a week there's a new trick released. It's so weird. It's so bizarre. The more I think about it, the more bizarre it feels. Yeah, I've been a part of that for most of my career, which I have mixed feelings about. I have really mixed feelings about. And there's no excuse. I can't excuse it, I excused it. It was a learning curve, and it led me to the point that I'm at today. But the magic industry, they're all performing the same tricks, and it's the same tricks that the magic industry teaches them and shows them what to do. And I've been there doing that, saying, oh, here's the new cool trick. I'm going to dress up like a rock star and make it cool and make you think that if you do this trick too, you too will be a rock star, you too will be respected, and you too can do this original trick that everybody else is doing. It's strange, and meanwhile it's damaging the art of magic and the practice. The deceptive practices are being damaged by that. It shouldn't exist. We should develop our own repertoires, and by all means share and create and learn to advance the art of magic together. But it becomes a money-making industry, which again, my head's in the clouds with it. Like, I feel bad about it, but I have mixed feelings because I love it too. I love the entire industry and the development and the discovery as well, the discovery of magic for newcomers, and how there are so many incredible creative minds in the industry trying to develop and trying to advance the art of magic, yet we're kind of lost and in the crowd of everybody who just wants the money or the attention. I'm going to get lost in it because it forks off in so many different directions. So getting back to it, I create so many things because I want it to be original. The creativity never stops, so it keeps going and going, and by the time you know it, you've created so many things. And I create so many things that I thought were golden, that because at times I needed to pay the bills, and art companies wanted to pay me to do this, and I wanted to get my stuff out there to help advance the art of magic and help other magicians. All of a sudden you're publishing all these tricks, trick after trick, that aren't necessarily useful to other people. And before you know it, the whole magic industry is full. It is overloaded with tricks that don't necessarily need to exist and don't need to be there, and tricks that aren't even that good. They were created for a reason and a purpose at that time. And maybe in my career I should have been a bit harsher on myself, I should have been a bit tougher on myself with what I decided to share, certainly with what I decided to publish. Certainly. Yet over those years, we set an industry standard where it's acceptable to release a new trick every week. And not even a good trick. Not even a good trick every week. The whole idea of it, this creative world that's been twisted and become something else. And before you know it, everything's been done, everything's been discovered, there's nothing left to be discovered. Yes there is, let's be honest. We just need to get smarter. And we just need to be more protective over it, I feel. Now, some of the most respected magicians who I respect haven't created anything. They're performers. They take somebody else's idea, or an idea that's existed for years, and make it their own. That's what I'm the biggest fan of. Taking something and doing it in your own way. Because I couldn't do the same trick that Dynamo does. I couldn't do the same thing that David Blaine does, but I could take that and do it in my own way. But that doesn't give me the right to take it and then publish it and teach it as my own. But it's kind of become an acceptable practice within the magic industry, within the magic practices. That happens constantly. It happens a lot. I'm always conscious as well with these videos that I'm babbling and that I'm talking too much about it in the wrong direction. So I'll probably come back to this time and time again in different directions, in different avenues, and different ways of thinking. But I want to touch on the idea of crediting, because crediting is such an important thing that I wish I'd have been more a part of in my career when I was more of a creative. Someone recently described me as a dictator of the magic industry, the magic practices, especially in the world of publications, magic publications. A dictator because, like I said, act like a rock star, perform a trick like a rock star, sell it with the promise that if the magician does it too, like you, that trick like me, the rock star, they too will achieve the same thing. They will be seen as a rock star, and they can receive the credit and the praise for being that same kind of person. It's a very weird thing. It's a very difficult thing for me to try and explain when my mind's forking off in these different directions. But crediting, my way of creating, I stayed away from the magic industry. Magicians, I stayed away from them. I still do. Like with cardistry and flourishing. When I was in my prime as a cardist and with flourishing, I would always avoid other flourishes, and I never, ever, not once learned somebody else's flourish, because I didn't want to be influenced. I didn't want to take inspiration from other people indirectly. I didn't want to be influenced indirectly and end up doing something similar that would have been seen as the same style, or, oh, that's similar to Dan and Dave's thing. I wanted my own style. So the way that I went about that, and the way that I do in life, I stay away from everybody, because I don't want to be inspired to a point where I'm going to be copying. Just like what happened when I was younger, much younger, when I first experienced David Blaine. I found myself becoming overly inspired, so I had to get away from him. The same thing, the same mindset I do throughout life. I try to be completely original. So now, if anything, I look at everybody else and think that's what not to be like. Don't want to be like him. Don't want to be like him. He's doing this, so I'm not going to. He's doing this, so I'm not going to. So I stayed away from everything. So when I was creating and developing magic, the exact same thing. I didn't want to be inspired, or I didn't want to take somebody else's idea unintentionally, or I'm saying the same thing over and over again. So the way that I would work, I would let my creativity run wild completely isolated, independently, completely to myself, and I would create. And then I found eventually people that I could present these ideas to who did know everything about everything in the magic industry. And I would ask them, have you seen something like this before? And 9 times out of 10, the answer would be yes. This is by this guy in 1932 in this publication. 9 times out of 10, I would say 90% of the things that I've created are completely uninspired, without knowing, has been done before. So I had to kind of scrap it, put it away. A lot of those times, instead of scrapping the good ideas, I would develop them and work them into something that felt like my own and looked like my own. And obviously I wouldn't publish those things. Those things wouldn't be published, but they would still be a part of my performance. There's quite a few things that I still perform today, daily, that no one's ever seen or never presented online or in publications because of that fact, because it's been done before. Mark of respect, a matter of crediting, a matter of unoriginality. And I think because of that way of creating and presenting magic, that certainly helped me with my originality. So I try and share that way of teaching and way of expression with people that I encounter as students, people who I mentor. Don't fear the idea that you're always going to create the same thing as other people. I won't name names, but there's a few friends I've known for a long time who have done the same thing. Whilst I was working at Illusionist, a very close friend of mine, in fact, he would bring me tricks all the time. Oh, I want to publish this, I want to publish this. And we'd look into it and find it's been done before, so you can't do it. And eventually it broke his heart, and he became disheartened by it, and ended up walking away. And he released like 2 things at Illusionist, and I always wish that he could have done more. But me, that was a whole part of the learning curve, which is still happening. That curve still happens, and it's the people who put up with that and keep going regardless, and still have respect for creators that they're in, and without stepping on toes. I know I've stepped on toes without knowing it, and whenever I find out that maybe something I've done is similar or like something that exists already, I can fix it instantly, you know. And I hope that people would reach out to tell me if I've done that unknowingly, just like the rest of the industry. There's a lot of people who don't really care about that and produce other people's work, and crediting is important. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say, and I've wasted all this time. Well, not wasted, but I've spent this time talking about other things instead, so maybe we'll come back to this subject. But those 2 things I wanted to cover are creativity, being original, and a little bit about crediting. So I'm going to end this video here. And by the way, I'm always listening, so anything you want my opinion on, or my thoughts, let me know. I'm here, and I'm looking forward to filming and sharing more thoughts each day. I don't always want to, and I don't always find it easy, like today, but I know that there are a few people out there who find what I'm saying useful or helpful, and that makes it worthwhile for me. So thanks for being here, thanks for listening. I'll be back very soon. I'm Daniel Madison. I'll see you next time.